Columbia and its affiliated stations bring you Elmer Davis and the news.
With the British and French parliaments reconvening day after tomorrow, it was again reported in London today that their governments would present them with a definite policy for stopping the imports of iron ore from into Germany from Scandinavia, even though that means what is called in London a technical infringement of Norwegian waters. A note to be sent to Norway and Sweden is said to be in preparation, in which the Altmark case and the movements of other German ships will be cited as evidence that Germany has been violating Scandinavian neutrality, and it will be argued that in the face of this, the Allies cannot be expected to remain passive. This as yet is not official, but there's been such persistent talk about it, including the remarks addressed to the neutrals generally by Winston Churchill yesterday, that it looks as if something may really be done. Today's Berlin papers say the neutrals must now expect England and France to attack them with force. It seems very doubtful if any such thing is contemplated. But if the Norwegians should resist by force what the British call a technical infringement of neutrality, the Allies would have either to take action which would disastrously damage their moral standing in the eyes of the world, or else back down and look ridiculous. The British argument, of course, is that an intrusion into Norwegian waters to seize German ships is a much less serious violation of neutrality than the German attacks which have sunk almost 100 Norwegian ships and killed about 400 seamen, and that if one is not resisted, the other should not be either. A good many Norwegians see the point in that, but they've been warned by the German press that if they fail to resist attacks on German ships in their waters, the Germans may have to take action. So apparently if this policy is once started, Norway is in danger of becoming a battleground, if not being drawn into the war itself. The territory Finland ceded to Russia in the peace treaty was today formally incorporated in the Soviet Carnation Republic, one of the subdivisions of the Soviet Union, which will hereafter be known as the Karelo-Finnish Republic. It was admitted at the meeting of the Soviet Supreme Council that some of the districts annexed were purely Finnish. When the Swedish Parliament meets tomorrow, Foreign Minister Günther is expected to announce that the project for a defensive alliance of Finland, Sweden, and Norway, which Russia vetoed, has been dropped. Meanwhile, the Swedes are rushing defensive preparations and rejuvenating their high command. The Russian Premier Molotov's speech the other day virtually admitted that the war with Finland had been a preventive war, and the Swedes can't tell when the Russians may again decide that they have to prevent something. If there should be fighting in Norway, that decision might come very soon. Argument still goes on over the authenticity of the documents in the German White Book, accusing Ambassador Bullitt of being the architect of the Anglo-Polish alliance and the maker of the war. American correspondents in Berlin were shown what the Germans said were the original documents, the reports of Polish ambassadors about the activity of Bullitt and other American diplomats. Some thought they looked authentic, some not. The Poles still insist that all their Foreign Office records were destroyed or removed beyond enemy reach, and point out that some of the language ascribed to both American and Polish diplomats is typical Nazi phraseology which it is impossible to imagine a foreigner using. Senator Holt of West Virginia, who was quoted the first day as frankly saying that he believed Bullitt said what was ascribed to him, later amended his statement to say that it sounded very much like him. Naturally, Mr. Bullitt's ideas on European politics in general are pretty well known, and the Germans would not have pinned this story on an American who was pro-Nazi. Some of the general remarks ascribed to Bullitt and other American diplomats are the sort of thing they might have said in a discussion of European political prospects, whether they ever did or not. But a good deal of what they are supposed to have said is quite as implausible as what they are supposed to have done. The Chinese government in Chongqing, the real one, is naturally delighted with the refusal of the United States to recognize the government set up yesterday by the Japanese in Nanking under Wang Qingwei. And they hope that our attitude will make the Japanese army realize the futility of trying to carry out its plans. But Japanese officials said they were not surprised at the refusal of recognition and that they would go right on carrying out their plans. And a notice comes from Mexico City that hereafter no European capitalists will be permitted to enter Mexico. Since the outbreak of the war, European tourists and students have been barred, but capitalists were let in if they were willing to invest $15,000 apiece in Mexican industry. Unfortunately, once they got in, they all treated Mexico as a way station and tried to cross the border into the United States.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.